What we're going to be covering today is the Note app, and I want to point out, like anything else, there's typically more than one way to get there. So if you notice on this panel, this is a K+ panel. That is the vast majority of the panels that your district is buying and has gotten in the last several months. You will know if it's a K+ because you're going to see these little slits right here across the front. Also, the pens are going to be centered closer to the middle. If your pens are on the outside and you don't see that, that means you have the predecessor to this, the K panel. Now, the reason I'm pointing that out is these pens actually have a function that's built in. When I pick the pen up, just know that there is a little piece of metal on the inside and it's magnetic. The magnetic part is here, so when I put it up here, it actually sticks. Same as on the K, same as on the U. But with this K+ model, it actually does something a little bit more. So I'm going to pick this pen up in a second, and I want you to look right here in the corner. So when I do that, notice how that little pop-up appears. If I don't do anything, it goes away. Now, if I pull this one up, the very first option is going to be in this corner. It's going to be the easy mark. If I actually click the easy mark, this is your quick access tool. That comes out of the slider on the side. It is the pen tool that you would see right about there when I expand it. That actually is the easy mark or the pen tool. So when I pick this up, it's going to trigger that action. The second option is Note, and the third option is Palette. I want to talk about those two softwares one last time before we actually launch it. In the predecessors to the K+ panel, that includes the U, the K, the X's that are out there, even the XEs. The Note app and the Palette app are integrated into one. You get to Palette from within Note. We got a lot of feedback, and so therefore the engineers have actually on the K+ separated out Note from Palette. So I could actually launch it by picking up the pen and choosing either one. We're going to be focused on Note. The other way of launching the app is opening up the app launcher by clicking the 9 white dots. And now what we're going to see right here, here is going to be your Note app, and to the right of it is Palette. So just remember, if you don't see those two, you're probably on an older or a different model. The softwares are going to be very similar, especially Palette. Lastly, on the predecessors, the icon looked different. It would have been like a greenish square, and it would say Note on it. So I'm going to go ahead and close it, and now we're going to go ahead and launch the Note app. While we cover this section today, we're going to cover a little bit about here, how to exit and the menu. We're going to be spending some time covering some of these tools here and then that tool right there. And we're going to talk about that tool there. The reason we're going to be focused on little sections is there's a lot the app can do, and we're just going to give you that introduction. The very first thing is you saw me using was the pen. To open up any tool to see if there is actually a other function, just touch it and you're now going to see a menu pop up. Again, this is a unique function to the K+ where you're going to have two pens on the top to choose from. So I made one of them red and one of them yellow. You see how I actually can even have a different pen selected for each one of these. You're going to see where that comes into play in just a second. I'm actually going to change it back to here and here. So my pens are pencil, paintbrush, Chinese brush, magic wand, which we'll talk about in a minute. I'm going to select it. I'm also going to adjust my thickness so it's going to be easier to see. I'm going to select the yellow, pencil, and thickness. So I've got two pens. However, how do I activate them? Blue or yellow. If I write with my finger, it's going to come up as yellow. If I pick the pencil up, pencil's going to come up as blue. If I am writing at the exact same time, that means with the stylus and with my hand, I can actually write with two distinct colors at once. Now the fun thing is, again, this is plastic, but it has a tip and a tip. So if I take both pens, one of them the small tip down, the other one with the big tip down, so I have two different tips. Now you guys can actually see me write in two colors. If I flip this one over, it's going to determine it's the same pen. It's going to write in the same color. So that's an important feature to know, that it is only in the K+. Now with a pen selected, if I want to erase, all I have to do is a flat hand. Multiple people can write at once, only one person can erase at once. I do want to point out the eraser, which is going to be right here. If I actually click the eraser, I can still put my hand down to make that eraser gesture, but if I make a line, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a little red line crossing that blue line over here. It'll go away. So this will actually allow me to strike through or circle items to delete. So I can erase with a hand gesture, or with the eraser selected, circle around. My other option is clear all. So now we talked about two pen colors. We talked about changing the pen. I now want to just let you see what each one of these pen strokes look like, and then that magic wand. Touching it, I'm just going to do with my hand. Pencil, make it really thick, just make sure we're there. So this is what the pencil looks like. And the paintbrush, same line thickness, just going to give you a little bit different flair on the ends, almost like you're doing that little brushy feel. The next one is going to be your Chinese brushes we've heard it referred to. It's going to give you a different tip on the start and end. And lastly, this is the crazy one. This is the magic wand. Now, before I do anything, I want you to know this. Try it out and practice it before you try doing this in front of the students for this reason. I'm going to draw a box. It's now going to come up with different items that might have had a box in it. There sometimes are more objects down below. If I was actually trying to draw an old TV, I could now change it. If I come up here and try to draw a triangle, it's going to give me little cartoony things to possibly change it to. So just be aware of what it's for. It's just designed to have a little bit of fun. Most teachers are going to stick with the 3 styluses, but having fun, click that magic wand. Now, we're going to go ahead and add a new page, and the page management is going to be in this lower right corner, and I'm going to go ahead and add a page. So now I'm on my 2 of 2. So when I look across the bottom here, I did my pencil, I did my eraser, I did my clear all. I'm actually going to click on the ruler, and it brings up 4 math tools. It's going to bring up a ruler, allowing me to manipulate it. It's going to bring up I think that's a 30 and 15. And then this is going to be your 45. And then lastly, you're going to get your protractor. As I put these 4 tools up on the screen, I want you to see that there are options. Number 1, X to close. You'll see each one has an X in the lower left corner. You're going to have a rotation button. It's going to be the hook. So I can twist or rotate. I cannot twist with multiple gestures. It's going to go there so I can move it and twist it. And I'm going to go ahead and close that one. The other thing that you're going to have is the ability to make it a little bit bigger, or in this case, longer. Now we're going to see this blue dot. So I'm going to focus on the blue dot for just a minute. I can grab that blue dot and move it to an angle. And I'm going to try and set it right at about 80, right there. Now I'm going to grab the other blue dot and I'm going to move it to a different angle. What I want you to notice, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom in using the freeze, pinch, and zoom. It is actually going to tell me the exact measurement down here in that blue ribbon that you see at the bottom. So it's going to tell me that I had actually did a perfect 70 degree angle. If I'm happy with it, I just hit the check mark. allowing me to now move this, and I'm going to go ahead and change my pen color to red now. Actually, green might show up a little bit better. I'm going to rotate it a little bit more. I'm going to shrink it down so it's over here, and then move this one so it's over here about 80. But I want you to notice I don't want it at 37. I wanted it precisely at 40. I checked it in the middle, 40, set. And now I close it, and now I have a yellow angle, I have a green angle. So this is where you can actually come and pre-make up angles and giving the students opportunities. With the ruler, one of the key things I want you to notice, I'm going to be drawing right on the edge of the ruler. So I'm going to go to this screen. If I start here at the 6, I can now draw, but you notice it's given me an exact measurement. So that was actually 6 quote-unquote inches. And that is 6 inches per the ruler, not per reality. That's one thing I have to caution you that. To get rid of it, I'm going to hit the X. So now that's my math tool. Again, open it, pick the tool I want, bring it back up and close. Your selection tool is right here. It's your cursor. So I want you to think just like you would do in a PowerPoint, website, anything like that where you're going to be clicking on objects. I'm actually going to be selecting an object. I'm going to take that top line and I'm going to select it. Now I can actually move it. So I can grab any of these objects and move them. So I can touch it because that's a big object. Can select it and now move it. As I select objects, I have several options. And when I get here, you're going to see them this way. The options are color, smart right, search, flip, top, clone, and delete. The top is to think of layering in PowerPoint. First object in, second object in, third object in, etc. So if I had something that came in that went above it, I could actually move this to the top layer and so forth. So I'm going to close that. Color allows me to change the color to a preset color, not the original one. So now I've got that. Here is where I can actually select it and flip it. So I can flip it this way or I can flip it that way. So it's 2 basic flips. Cloning it allows me to make a copy of that object and move it that way. So I got that object and moved. Now the next thing I want to talk about, which is unique. I'm just using a regular pen here. I'm just going to draw a squiggly line. I actually want it to just be a regular pen, not the magic brush. There we go. So I've got my squiggly line. Now if I hit my selection tool, I can actually grab ink and move it. If I wanted to, I could actually draw around objects, kind of grouping them together and move them together. The reason I want to point that out is in the Canvas program, the Canvas app, you can only move objects, which would be considered to be something like that. You can't move ink. Here you can actually move the ink. Adding a page one more time, I'm going to go ahead and write the word yes. Down here, I'm going to write the word no. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to go ahead and hit my selection tool. I'm going to circle the word yes. Now if I look at Smart Right, it's going to give me options. Yes, yes, or pass. And if there's more, you could arrow over. I want it to be the lowercase yes. And now it actually did text recognition. I could circle this one. Smart Right is there. The other thing which is very interesting, if I select it, there is a search. So it could now go in and do a search with Chrome or the built-in browser for no. I would encourage you to play with that and have fun. The last thing is now we got our top, our clone, text. That's where I can delete the object quickly. Couple other tools. This is going to be your Shapes tool, which is just to the right of the ruler. I'm going to open up the Shapes tool. There are several things in here. By default, you should start off with your circle selected. That's the way the program starts originally. It will remember the way you saved it. So I'm actually going to go to an oval, and now I just touch and drag on the screen. So you're going to see me, all I'm doing is touching and dragging on the screen to make it there. So now I can start to create my own Venn diagram. Open up the object. I can pick a different object, touch drag. I can only put one object on the screen at a time. The other thing is there are more objects below for lines, squiggly lines, dotted lines, etc. The one icon I want you to pay attention to here is actually going to be the top one, and I'm going to zoom in. And that's the one that looks like the finger pointing at the inside of a house, for example. But at the same time, notice how I have 2D, 3D. After this, I'm going to be talking about the 3D. So with this shape here, this is where I can actually draw angles. I'm going to go ahead and give myself a new page. Now we could do 3 shapes inside of Canvas, and only 3. We could do a circle, we could do a basic triangle of shapes, and I could do a box. When I get in here, you're going to start to see I can actually do some odd shapes, and it'll start to actually fix them and make them a little bit better. You can't get super crazy. You can't do moons, palm trees, things of that nature. It's basic geometric shapes. If you start to get to like 8 sides, 10 sides, sometimes it thinks you were trying to draw a circle and just didn't do a very good job. So play around, test it, have a good time. The other thing is you can actually draw a straight line, but you can't draw 4 individual lines and have it combine into a box. It's just going to be 4 individual lines. The next object I want you to see is that 3D shape. So you do have these pre-made 3D shapes where I could actually select it, and then I could come in and label all of the different sides, areas, and have the students come up and actually start to manipulate or solve the problem right on the screen. So those are just some of the tools that are built in. Now to the right of that is called table and sticky notes. We're going to talk about that later. The last thing I want to talk about here is preview. Preview is different from select. Select allows me to grab individual objects, while preview allows me to actually grab the entire canvas and move the canvas up. So all I'm doing is with one point of touch, I can move it down. I can also move it left, right, etc. I can also pinch and zoom with 2 points of touch to shrink the canvas down. Best example for this is I have a list. I got 1, 2, 3, 4. I needed to put a couple more bullet points. I can go ahead, push it up and over, select my pen, finish. And now I actually want all 6 bullet points here. Or as Vicky says, I can't see that bottom one. I can move it up and even zoom in so the students can see it. So that's the big difference between preview as well as select. Now on the side over here, that is where we actually have our page management. I just want to touch this for a second. It's going to be pretty self-explanatory. Add a page, previous page, next page, and you have 5 of 5. Simple enough. I'm going to click on the 5 of 5, and it's now going to give me my preview of all pages, allowing me to select a page at the top. I can also exit out of it or close it or delete that page. Now this is important to know. Once I delete a page, if I hit the undo at the bottom, it does not bring pages back. Undo only undoes what I wrote, or if I actually deleted something. So if I delete that, my undo will bring it back, so forth, so on. Big thing to keep in mind, doesn't delete or doesn't undo deleted pages. So that's going to be there. The last couple things we're going to focus on today are going to be in the lower left corner over here, the exit button. If I click the exit button, it's going to prompt me, do you want to save or not? I'm not actually going to close yet. I'm going to go ahead and erase my little line there. There we go. Now I want to focus on the menu in the lower left corner. We have a lot of options. We're going to go in depth on the next one on a lot of them. Couple things I want to point out so everybody's aware is your background. When you open up background, here's where you can actually change your background to a different color. something that's a little bit easier on the eyes. This on my camera is horrible, so I'm going to stick with something that's a little bit darker, so when you see it on camera, it doesn't wash out. Textures are preloaded grids. So now I can have the multi-line grid. I can do squares, etc. Music teachers love it. Music teachers really love it. Then you also have some sports stuff where you have your tennis courts, you have your volleyball courts, you have your football field, your baseball field, everything else. If I don't want one of the textures, I can actually hit no texture. The thing I like most is right below it is custom. This is where I can actually pick my own background. So I preloaded those. I closed the app, but they were still there. If I hit the plus, this will allow me to look in local storage or on my USB drive. I have an image saved, so I want this image to be my background. So now I click switch, and there is my new background. This would allow me again to come in here, and I'm going to go yellow. I could circle, I could have the students come up, label the planets in this particular instance, but I want you to be aware I've got 2 of 5. Because I'm on this page, if I hit new page, it's going to keep that background and go to the new page, keeping it there so I can actually keep building my activities right from it. So that again is from the menu and backgrounds. The last thing we're going to cover, and I'm going to cover it very quickly, is import. I can import an image or a PDF. First, I'm going to bring in an image. Again, local storage, which is the local hard drive of the panel. The USB, I'm going to bring in Neptune. And now I can actually bring that image in. As you notice, there was a crop, a flip, top, clone, etc. But what I want to point out is the green dots on the 4 corners. That's how I'm going to really resize this object. Just grabbing one of the corners to resize it. I cannot, because I still get guilty of it, I want to grab the object and resize it a lot. It's harder sometimes to get that good grip. So if you struggle with it, just select it and go. The other thing is I'm trying to rotate it. That's harder. So when I select it, you're going to actually make it a little bit smaller. You're going to actually see a green dot at the top. When I grab that green dot, that's how I can now rotate objects. And we have all of our other things. So that is looking at bringing in an image. And we're going to actually talk about one last thing, but I'm going to have a plain old ordinary background for it. Go to my background, go back to orange, switch. This is an import because this is a powerful feature I want you to know. Import a PDF, local storage. Here, I'm going to bring in a grade item. And this was something I actually was kind enough to go and download off of the web. This is something by K5 Learning, and it was a free resource, so I do want to give credit where credit's due. I personally didn't do it. But what I want you to think about with our different types of pens, I could actually clone this object on this page and have students come up to the board with their pens and actually start to, let me make sure I got my pen selected, there we go. So they could actually start to annotate and write Battle of the Pens, what they did. Now the interesting thing, when I bring in a PDF, each page of the PDF comes in on its own page and note. So I'm going to bring in one more PDF so you can see it. This one is, I think, a little bit bigger. Yeah, this one's a little bit bigger. It's only 81 pages. Yeah, I thought it was 8 pages the first time I loaded it. But I wanted you to see that now that it's got all those pages in, it's up. I now have 90 total pages. So it's populating them out. That is a great tool for teachers that are using PDFs. Bring them in. I can actually then clone what's on the page and have students writing all over it. If I was a language arts teacher, I could have students on one page identifying all the nouns, on the opposite page, which is the same page, the verbs or adjectives, etc. The last thing that I do is I exit. If I want to save it, I can click save, and now I can actually just save all the pages. I'm going to cancel for 1 second, because if I hit the menu, I could first save it. Now I could actually dictate where I wanted to save it, making it easier for me to find it.